Hi, you're listening to the Fantasy Football Edge podcast. My name is Mills, and this week I'm joined by nobody. I'm all on my Todd for the Game Week 25 preparations. So this week we're going to take a look. Obviously the fixtures are a little bit different this week with the midweek games. So we've got a deadline of 6:45 PM on Tuesday. So I'm going to put this little podcast out. You know, look, it's me, it's Mills, I'm on my own. Is anyone going to listen? Probably not, but you know what? I can't disappoint the fans. So I'm going to be talking obviously about Game Week 25 today, and then later on this week I'll probably put another one out if people liked this one, just in preparation of Game Week 26. And then next week, hopefully, normal service will be resumed with JP and Quigliano. So I'm going to go straight in with the Gary of the Week this week, and it's a player that massively performed last week, a player that we pretty much knew was going to perform, and of course it is Sergio Aguero. So I'm looking at my own team here. Aguero's in there. Now unfortunately I didn't captain him last week, of course I didn't, because he scored a hat-trick. So he's still in there this week. He has to be that guaranteed performer. Now he did come on at half-time in the cup game that Man City won comfortably at Cardiff yesterday, but even despite that, I think that's probably a good little run out for him. They don't play until Wednesday, so they're playing a West Brom team that actually performed pretty well at the weekend against Liverpool in the cup. Played against a strong Liverpool side and ran out 3-2 winners, which was a phenomenal result for West Brom. But what it does do, of course, it shows that they can go forward and they can score goals, but it also shows that they're still pretty, weak defensively. And we haven't seen that sort of performance from West Brom this season that you would associate with the West Brom of maybe last season and the season before, where they sort of churn out those goal, clean sheets and so on. So I think Man City will win this game comfortably. And Aguero's highly likely to start. He most likely will start. Now, there has been an injury to Sané, so there is a little bit less possibility for rotation there for Pep. So, again, Aguero's definitely going to start the game. That's obviously why he was rested at the weekend, with that in mind. Jesus is nowhere near back. So for me, Aguero is the Gary this week. There's some decent fixtures this week, to be honest. You look at the Arsenal versus Swansea game, even Liverpool away at Huddersfield. I think, despite Liverpool's recent blip, I think that's a decent fixture. And Chelsea at home to Bournemouth. Again, Chelsea have been a little bit in and out recently, but they had a good win over Newcastle at the weekend with Batshuayi in there. I mean, again, he could be coming in. I don't know. But a good performance there. So there's plenty of decent fixtures. Obviously, the Spurs-Man United fixture sort of rules a few things out. But I'm going to look to the Arsenal-Swansea game for the Xabi Alonso. So I'm going to go with. I'm actually going to go with Mkhitaryan as the long shot. And you can see here on my team, I've actually put him in this week. And the reason he's a long shot is obviously because he hasn't played really for so long. He's had a few minutes here. Sort of around Christmas time, but other than that, not a great deal. So, the stats are so bad that realistically, you go back anywhere sort of before game week 6, and it doesn't make for pretty after game week 6. Sorry, it doesn't make for pretty reading. But if he can hit the ground running at Arsenal, I mean, he hit the ground running this season at United, 2 assists in his first. 2 assists in the second, then another. I mean, he's only scored 1 goal this season, but that's why he's a long shot. And the fixture, I think, is a decent fixture for Arsenal in the sense that they were out the FA Cup, so they had full preparation at the weekend. And, okay, Swansea did a number on Liverpool last week, but Arsenal will certainly have looked at that and be prepared for that. And I think they've got to go out there. They've got to really attack that. So I think that's a decent little long shot, and I've put him straight in. So there are alternatives. I think again, you look at the fixtures that are coming up for Arsenal. They've got Everton at home next, and then they've got 2 pretty difficult games here. I mean, the Man City home game could be anything. That's going to be a fantastic game to look forward to. But there's a long time between now and then. So let's go to the side tips then. So what I'm actually going to do for the side tips today is I'm going to take a look at my general sort of picks this week that I've gone through. And again, you can see here that the Swansea-Arsenal game was the first one that I talked about, and I talked about Mkhitaryan. I think Nacho Monreal at 5.6 million is a hell of a steal. He's scoring goals, he's getting assists. He's done that consistently now for the last couple of games. Now, he's only really just come back into the team, but he's going to be in there. And they've got a decent clean sheet potential in this game. Now, I'm going to come in with a player later that might sort of argue against the clean sheet potential here, but I think it's a decent... Nacho's a decent shout there. I think the West Ham Palace game, this is a tough one because you've got Arnautovic, Lanzini, Carroll, so many players out. If you look at the West Ham midfield in particular, they've got so many players missing. But I think, I've said here, if you're looking for a budget player, you're probably going to be looking for a Palace player in this fixture, purely because West Ham are going to struggle, I think, in this game. And Milivojevic is the one that I've sort of picked out just for the price. But, there are other players in there, your Zahas, your Benteke's and Townsend's that are going to do pretty well in that fixture, I would say. And then moving on to the Liverpool game, again, I've said already that I think Liverpool will actually do okay in this fixture. It was disappointing, I suppose, from their point of view that they've brought in Virgil van Dijk and they conceded 3 goals at home to West Brom, and he was playing in that game. But it'll be the same old thing for Liverpool. They've got to go and they've got to outscore their opponents, and it will be, of course, Salah. Mane, not so much. He's not really been on it this season, but I think Firmino and Salah are the ones they're the ones that take all the shots. They get all the chances. So of course you've got to be looking to those. And again, the Chelsea game, the Chelsea-Bournemouth game, mainly looking at Chelsea here. Hazard seems to have hit some really decent form lately, and then it's sort of it's annoying, isn't it? Because you look at Batshuayi at the weekend scoring goals. If he was consistent, he'd be a decent shout, but he can't be, and I still don't like Morata, so I'm not going to be pushing that one. But Hazard certainly offers some good potential in this game. And I have to just take a look at Chelsea, actually, because I think Willian is still likely to be missing for that game. So Pedro possibly becomes another alternative there as a sort of cheaper one if you can't afford Hazard. And then, like we've already said, the Man City game. Now, Sané is possibly out for around about a month. So when I wrote this, that hadn't happened. So I'll probably have to go in and edit that. But Sterling again scored at the weekend. He has to be in your team. Aguero we've already talked about. And then defensively, I'm probably not so sure now. I wouldn't necessarily bank on a Man City clean sheet in this game. And then moving on to the Spurs-Man United game, I think this is such a fascinating game with the introduction of Alexis Sanchez. He got man of the match in the Cup. Again, okay, it was against Yeovil, but this is a good... well, the games don't come much bigger than this, really, in terms of challenge. Now, United sort of scrambled a 1-0 win, I think, back at Old Trafford earlier this season. It'd be interesting to see the approach. I think you'll see a slightly different approach, and there could be goals in this game. I wouldn't bank on it, and I certainly wouldn't be rushing to put Alexis Sanchez in or anything like that. But I do think that signing of Sanchez makes such a difference to Man United. And again, I wouldn't necessarily be banking on a clean sheet for Spurs. So that's the other sort of point there. And then sort of looking at the rest of the sort of teams, Theo Walcott I think is a good pick for Everton, and I like Ward-Prowse at Southampton, and at 5 million is a pretty decent shout. So I'm going to be back after this short interlude with this week's Steal or No Deal.
You're listening to the Fantasy Football Edge podcast with Jason Mills.
A short podcast today. I'm just going to go into Steal or No Deal in a second, but before I do that, just want to alert people's attention to, again, the Fantasy Football Edge website. And if you may already be a member, you may not, I don't know, but if not, if you've noticed this little join us button here, if you click into that, you can have a look and see what you get. But basically, it's going to cost you about £10 a year, and you get things like the final word that I put out every sort of game week, sort of 90 minutes before the end of the deadline. Podcast extra time that we normally do, so we normally have the podcast a little bit different today. It's not usually just listening to me waffle on inanely. And the top picks, the top captain picks as well. So there's other stuff as well. So feel free to dive in and get yourself signed up and give yourself that fancy football edge. But back to the podcast, enough plugging of the website, and I'm going to be talking about a steal or no deal player who, to be honest, has been pretty consistent this season, and certainly of late. I'm going to talk about Jordan Ayew at 5.2 million, and 72 points overall for the season is not a bad return, really. I mean, if we look at the forwards, 72 points. I mean, actually, is that top 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's almost in the top 10. Now, obviously, there aren't that many strikers to choose from, but lots of people this season put a lot of faith in Tammy Abraham. Now, he's completely out of favour at the moment. But actually, Jordan Ayew has been pretty consistent in terms of his starting place in the team. In fact, he's played in every game this season. Okay, he hasn't started every game. But if we look at the last few, he has. And if you look at the last 6, he scored 3 in his last 6, which is a decent return. Now, he's only scored 4 all season. So clearly, something is happening for him now that wasn't happening earlier in the season. Perhaps it's the change of manager. Perhaps he's just hit a decent bit of form. But I just think at that price, 5.2 million, is it worth sticking him in for maybe a Firmino or someone, and then use that other 4 or 5 million to pump up your midfield? I think it's a decent tactic to use, and I think it's a decent shout. I don't know. Let me know. Is it a deal, or is it a steal, or is it a no deal? You tell me. I don't know. Anyway, guys, that is going to finish off the podcast today. I can't talk on my own for much more than maybe 10 minutes. So if you liked it, if you found this useful, let me know, and I'll bring you another one later this week. But don't fear, the usual podcast will return next week, and I'm sure I'll be ripped by Quigliano and JP for this pod. So, guys, have a good game week 25, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye for now.
The Fantasy Football Edge Podcast. 90% drivel, 9% ego, and 1% tips.